Chapter 26. With a pen-like claps between his teeth, Ethan Barrett rammed the flathead screwdriver into the track underneath the rear sliding glass door of the townhouse. In one fluid motion, he pressed the screwdriver down with his left hand and jerked the door handle up with his right. A soft thump and the door slid open, easy as pie. Pocketing the screwdriver in his back cargo pants, he crept across the threshold. He glanced at the security system keypad glowing green on the wall beside the door. Unarmed. Rich people were stupid, always spending money on things they never use. The penlight cut through the darkness, illuminating the living room. Gray walls, a white sofa and two matching chairs, a vase stuffed with fresh flowers on the coffee table. He pulled a pink bloom from the bunch, wondering what the flower was called. Probably something fancy. He swirled it beneath his nose. It smelled like a funeral parlor. He thought about the woman sleeping above him and smiled. The staircase rose against the far wall, the flower still tucked in his hand. He aimed the flashlight and eased up the steps. His feet hugged the wall to his left where the threads were less likely to squeak. When he reached the top, music floated towards him, slow and sorrowful, a female voice, the singer betrayed by her lover. He followed the melody to the bedroom at the end of the hallway. He clicked off the penlight and stood still next to the open doorway, letting his eyes adjust to the darkness. The song reminded him of Ashley, the woman who turned on him, sold him out, and robbed him of his future. And she killed his kid. Neil had lied for Ashley. He told Ethan that the baby died because something was wrong with it. But Ethan knew better. His wife made the doctor kill the kid on purpose out of spite. Ashley's actions had forced him to commit unspeakable deeds. The blood he shed belonged on her hands, not his. He needed to make her understand, to compel her to see the error of her ways. Her punishment fit her crime. He stepped into the bedroom. Moonlight leaked through the blinds, streaming across the bed where the naked couple slept. The man on his back, the woman on her side facing her lover. Her long blonde hair fanned around her head like a halo. Her body lay at an angle with a sheet bunched at her waist and her right foot dangling off the mattress. He had watched a dark-haired man before, knew the woman's lover was a heavy sleeper. Ethan stared at him. The idea of slashing the man's throat flicked through his mind, but he pushed the idea aside. For now, he'd stick to the plan. As the music began to fade, he glanced at the phone plugged into the speaker dock on the nightstand. It was the woman's phone, on her side of the bed. The next song filled the air, slow like the first, but with a male's voice. He never heard either tune before and didn't care to hear them again, but the music made his job easier. If there was a struggle, it would help mask the noise. Ethan dropped to the floor. Holding the flower to his chest, he rolled onto his back and slid across the hardwood underneath the bed, his feet toward the headboard. He brushed the end of the flower stem across the arch of the woman's dangling foot. The woman jerked once and then settled back down. He paused a few seconds, brushing the stem against her arch again. The woman stirred. He watched her bare feet land on the floor next to his head. She shuffled around the bed towards the master bathroom, just as he expected. He lay still on the floor and listened. The bathroom light flashed on. He counted off the seconds. 1, 2, 3. Then he slid out from beneath the bed, dropped the flower on a nightstand, and slipped across the room. With his back against the wall, he stood in the deep shadows next to the bathroom door. Then he waited. When he heard the toilet flush, his muscles tensed, like a coil ready to spring. The bathroom light flipped off. As the woman stepped across the threshold into the bedroom, Ethan struck. In a swift move, his arm cinched around her, lifting her up off her feet. his hand clamped tight around her mouth. She struggled for a moment and dug her fingernails into his arm. Pain ripped through him as though he'd been clawed by a talon of a hawk. Ethan flinched. His hand almost slipped from her mouth. A muffled scream escaped the woman's lips. The wail was louder than he anticipated, rising above the melody that resonated through the room. The man shifted his position on the bed, demanding Ethan's attention. Had her lover heard the woman's cry? Was he awake? The woman squirmed in his arms, trying to break free. He squeezed her tighter. He had to end it now, before the man had a chance to stop him. He pressed his lips against the woman's ear. Ashley made me do it, he whispered. With a quick jerk, he snapped her neck. She fell limp in his arms. Ethan froze, holding a dead woman in the shadows, waiting for the man to rise from the bed. After a few seconds had passed, he realized his grip on the body, allowing it to slide to the floor. He inched towards the bed. An overwhelming rage surged through Ethan's core at the sight of the dark-haired man, now curled on his side, but still bound by sleep. And again, the idea of slashing his throat bubbled to the surface. The man deserved to die for what he'd done, but simply killing him now would be too quick. What Ethan had planned would be far more suitable punishment. He'd forced the woman's lover to suffer. The man's fate would be worse than death. Ethan scooped the woman from the floor. He arranged her naked corpse on the bed next to her sleeping lover, spreading her long blonde hair across the pillow. He smiled again as he placed a fancy pink flower between her breasts. Chapter 27. Ashley aimed a pistol and fired, hitting a paper target that dangled from the metal frame she set up behind the lake house. Her skill was improving. With each shot, she managed to get closer and closer to the bull's eye. Defending herself was more important now than it had ever been before. Her little one's life depended on it. She emptied 3 magazines of ammo from her Smith & Wesson Shield Plus. Ooh, okay. 39 rounds. She hosted the pistol. It was time to end the practice session. A weak smile crossed her face as she snatched the target from the stand. Learning to shoot a firearm had never ranked on the long list of things she wanted to accomplish in her lifetime, but life had a way of forcing you to adapt. Survival of the fittest and all that. She scribbled the date on the top corner of the target so she'd be able to track her progress. As she walked back towards the lake house, she glanced at her cell, 8:37 a.m. Brett still hadn't called, and the last time she checked, just before breakfast, his phone was still turned off. She hoped that after a night's sleep, he would be ready to talk, that he would return to the lake house. She wanted to see him in person. She wasn't going to break the news about their baby over the phone, and she needed to know that Brett was safe. Even though Neil was gone and could no longer help Ethan, her ex-husband's phone call the night before had affirmed that his plan was still in motion. Her blood ran cold when she wondered what his surprise would be. He possessed far too much information about their lives. There was no telling where he would strike next. Neil's file drawer had contained a thick folder on Brett. With his hacking skill, Neil may have even uncovered the names of her fiance's college friends. Ethan might already know about the lake house. Entering through the deck door into the living room, Ashley dropped the paper target onto the coffee table and plopped down on the sofa. She tapped the message app on her cell. The long-awaited delivered tag floated beneath the last text she sent to her fiancé. Brett had turned his phone back on. He finally received her text, but he hadn't bothered to answer her. Should she call him, or should she send another text? He obviously wasn't ready to speak with her yet. If she called, he might turn his phone off again. But it was important for her to know he was somewhere safe where Ethan couldn't find him. She opened the Find My app. She never spied on Brett before, had always respected his privacy, but under the current circumstances, she felt no guilt in tracking him. It was the only way she could gain peace of mind. She needed to make sure he wasn't lying in a hospital bed or worse, in the morgue. A little blue dot popped up pinpointing her fiance's location: 1751 Wiltshire Place in Briarwood. She wasn't familiar with the address. From the satellite view of the map, she could tell it was located in a residential neighborhood. He was likely crashing at a home of one of the guys from work, which could prove to be a bad move. Ethan was sure to have all the names and addresses of Brett's colleagues. She needed to tell her fiance about Neil and the thick file of data he had compiled on them. It was too much information to try and explain in a text, and he most likely wouldn't answer if she called. Only one solution remained. She'd drive to Wilshire Place, knock on the door, and hope Brett would agree to speak with her. She'd be honest about tracking his phone and explain that she only used the app because she was worried about his safety. If she could get her fiance to listen to her, maybe she could talk him into returning to the lake house. Once they were alone, she would find a gentle way to announce her pregnancy. She wondered how he would feel about the baby. Would the revelation that he was going to be a father rekindle his love for her, or would the news push him either further away? Ashley Hope hopped into her sedan and plugged the address into the car's navigation system. As Ashley turned onto Wilshire Place, her heart jumped to her throat. Police cars blocked the end of the street in front of a row of expensive-looking townhomes. Their blue lights flashed an ominous warning. Please don't let it be Brett. She parked her car on the side of the road and bolted out. Wait, did Brett have another? Oh. While her pulse racing, she ran towards the townhouse at the center of action. The lawn had been cordoned off with yellow crime scene tape. The white CSI van she'd been processed in the night before sat in the driveway. Even from a distance, she could read the black house number emblazoned on the front porch column, 1751. Brett was inside. Was he still alive? A uniformed police officer caught her as she approached the house. Sorry, miss, he said, blocking her entry to the sidewalk. No one's allowed in. Tears welled in her eyes. But you don't understand. My fiance is inside, and he could be hurt. I need to see him. At least his phone was inside the townhouse. There was no ambulance on the street. Could he have already been taken to the hospital? The officer shook his head, ignoring her plea. I'm sorry, you have to stay behind the lines. She was about to start screaming, about to demand that he let her through, when she heard the front door of the townhouse swing open. She looked up and saw Detective Lanson descending the front porch steps. His eyes locked with hers, his face grim. Please tell me that Brett's okay, she begged as the detective met her at the crime scene barrier. Lanson motioned for her to cross over the yellow tape and then follow him down the sidewalk out of earshot of the police officers. After taking a few steps, she decided it was far enough. She couldn't wait a second longer. She had to know. Is Brett dead? The question shot out of her mouth louder than she expected. The detective's expression morphed from concern to confusion. He shook his head. No, he's fine. Didn't he call you? Lanson asked. Relief flooded through her. Brett was still alive? But something terrible had happened. Of that she was sure. Had Ethan killed one of her fiance's colleagues? I haven't talked to Brett yet, she said. Ashley didn't want to admit to the detective that she tracked her fiance's phone. Will you please tell me what happened? A strange expression crossed Lanson's face. It was as though he was having trouble finding the right words. There was a murder, he finally said. A heavy wave of guilt washed through her soul. Another murder at Ethan's hand. Another death she hadn't been able to prevent. Had her ex-husband left any evidence behind? Could they prove he had committed the crime? Ethan did it? She stated, sorrow filling her voice. The detective nodded. The neighbor's security camera covered both backyards. Ethan Barrett was captured on video. He broke in at 3:18 a.m. Ashley let out a breath. It seemed they had him this time. Proof that he had broken into the townhouse. Her ex-husband would most likely receive the death penalty. The victim was someone linked to Brett, maybe a co-worker or one of his colleagues' friends, a person her ex-husband wanted to use to send them both a message. It could be anyone from her fiance past or present. If Brett was fine, as Lansing had said, he may not have been staying here. He could have rushed over after receiving the news. Who did Ethan kill? She hoped it wasn't someone with young children. Most of Brett's co-workers had families. The murders her ex-husband had committed were already horrendous enough. Robbing a child of their parents would be even more heartbreaking. The detective looked at her. Do you know Cherie Donnelly? The image of a smiling, pretty blonde sprang forth from Ashley's memory. She didn't actually know the woman, but she had met both Cherie and her husband once before at an office party when she and Brett had first moved to Briarwood. As she suspected, the victim was her fiance's colleague. She works as a financial consultant for Parker Stone. After the words were out, Ashley realized she had used the present tense to describe Brett's co-workers. If Cherie was the victim, Lansing had said there had been a murder, singular. But Cherie was married. She might still be alive. Did Ethan kill Cherie or did he kill her husband? Ashley wanted to know. Cherie. The husband doesn't live here. They're separated. Ashley's heart ached for the loss of the young woman. Another innocent life snuffed out. She was surprised to hear about the couple breakup. They seemed happy together at the party. How did she die? I can't divulge that yet. She nodded, wondering what had led her ex-husband to kill the financial consultant. Was he trying to cause a shakeup at Parker Stone? He wanted to ruin their lives, but if he just wanted to get her fiancé fired, there were a million easier ways to accomplish it. There was something deeper going on here, but what? Ashley needed to figure out a way to piece Ethan's plans together. She had to work fast in order to prevent him from taking another life. Dr. Fisher had been someone her ex-husband might have held a grudge against, but Cherie's death seemed to come out of left field. Girl, are you the one who called Brett? She asked. Once the detective had seen Ethan on the security footage, he he should have contacted Ashley as well, but maybe he wanted to get her fiance's take on the murders first. Lansing hesitated, the strange look back in his eyes. He rubbed his jaw. Brett called us, he said. If her fiancé had notified the police, that must mean he had been the one to find the body. He must have stopped by. He must have been stopped by Cherie's house for some reason. Maybe to drop off something for work. Brett had promised to stay away from the office out of fear that Ethan would follow him back to the lake house. When did Brett find her? Around 7. That didn't make sense. Her fiancé never got out of bed before 7, unless something had happened. Maybe Ethan had found a way to contact her fiancé like he had contacted her, had possibly sent him a warning, giving him a heads up of the murder. How did Brett know to come here so early in the morning? She asked. Lansing signed. He was already here. The detective gaze dropped to the sidewalk when your ex-husband broke in. Stunned, Ashley stared at Lansing. Brett was here at 3 in the morning? Had he crashed on Cherie's couch? A seed of doubt sprouted in Ashley's chest. What are you not telling me, Detective? She asked, trying to keep her voice from shaking. You should talk to Brett, Lanson said, avoiding her eyes. He's inside. You can see him in a few minutes. It wasn't fair to make her wait. Her whole world was crumbling around her. She needed the truth now. If you know something, please just spit it out, she demanded. After everything I've been through, I think I deserve the truth. What was my fiance doing here at 3 o'clock in the morning? Detective Lanson met her gaze, a troubled expression on his face. Brett and Sherry Donnelly were together in bed. See you in the next chapter.